Okay, so let's get started with this. Okay, so yesterday was not not as successful as I would have liked. I failed to get this database stuff working even off stream, but I do have a plan for that. Um, a friend of mine is a very good SQL Server person, so I will move on with the idea to try and see this through to completion, and that way I can come back around on that deliverable part later. So where are we with Sagas right now? We are, he says, as he hasn't even got the right project open. We are at a place where it should, pardon me, it should correctly store the saga. It should um, trigger the events together. I still do need to do um, the piece to fire that final event, but we can mock that in the meantime, right? We can just make a HTTP request. We can build out the pieces, but we can make a HTTP request and validate. So today we need to put in the piece that actually produces the message when um, when the saga is complete, and kind of work towards what it means for that saga to be complete. So yes, a lot of the stream time has been spent upon sagas recently, right? Um, I have developed stuff off stream. It's not like I've just done everything on stream, but it's kind of an important keystone component of what I want to do right now, right? It's a piece that is necessary to chain together other pieces of the system that I'm building. And if I don't build this foundational piece now, I will either hack it together and make it work, and then it's too hard to come back around on afterwards. Right now, I've got the choice of time, and that's the key piece, right? That's the important part, right? I have the ability to say I'm going to take a little bit of time, do the right thing from the start, or what I believe is the right thing, and move forward with that design. If I was in a rush, if I had to get a product out there by next week or whatever, then I couldn't do this. So it is a luxury of time, but I think it's an effort um, worth undertaking. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to do I publish on complete. Good morning, Dota. How you doing? I publish on complete will literally just trigger. Here's what's going to happen, and I think it's going to have to have a method in here to say I publish something. And yeah, we're gonna have to figure this out. There's gonna be some sort of pipeline somewhere that triggers these things. Good morning, Rostone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. How are you doing? My Dota reconfiguring my presentation over and over. Realize selling them on testing is preaching to the choir. Okay, so you feel that um, they're already sold on the idea of testing. Okay, they already want tests. You don't have to sell them. So what do you have to do? Do you have to sell them on how you test, or do you have to kind of prove to them that it's easier to put in there than they think it is, so that it's worth doing now? So Okay. Okay. A pivot is okay. Essa, welcome. I saw you followed the other day on YouTube and on Twitch. I appreciate that. Thank you. Great videos. I really enjoy watching them. Thank you for sharing with us. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for the compliment. I really appreciate that. Hopefully they will continue to be useful. Also, I have no control over what they do really. At best, I can positively influence them. I mean, one of the things that I'm kind of trying to undertake at my work right now is they know they want to do unit testing, but globally there's different ways of doing it. There's different ways of writing tests. There's different ways of approaching testing, and it's a hard thing to do, right? It's not an easy thing to coordination of teams is the hardest thing in the entire process of software development. Once you go beyond one person, like right now, I could go through this and develop this out, right? I could sit here every day coding away, never write a story, never structure it, never do anything that doesn't that means I don't have to code. And I can throw a lot of code in here in a very short amount of time. But if I introduce another person, I have to consider how they code. I have to consider their standards, their practices. And that's your problem, right? It's like you have to make sure everyone's heading in the right direction. Tests are great, but tests are only as good as the people writing them. So if you're struggling to get consistency, or if people don't agree on how to write tests, so yeah, maybe that's where you need to head. Yeah, pair programming fixes a bunch of that. You're saying, of what you're saying. Yeah, it does. Yeah, pair programming will help because you can kind of coordinate that consistency. Documenting out how to write tests, like what the expectations are, those sorts of things. Yeah, but oftentimes they won't, so you have to come up with a compromise or a middle ground. Okay, so I publish on complete. So what's this interface going to do? So I publish on complete is going to have to come with a method that says like publish, right? And it's going to be tenant is ready. It's going to be triggered when it's complete. My pair, I cannot think of an instance where we didn't agree in the end. The key concept we use is argue through code. Yeah, you've got to keep things civil. You've got to keep things balanced. Absolutely. Um, human beings, we don't always agree, right? I'm going to raise that microphone up a little bit. I know it's I've slid it down lower. We had a pretty huge disagreement on Monday and could not talk it out. Yeah, that's going to happen anytime you get people in a room, right? Or a virtual room. this is most likely the case in some. And then we committed his solution. I showed him in code what I was thinking. Realized by doing that, my way didn't work. He won the argument. Well, I don't like to see that as an argument. I see that as a learning point, right? You learn something through that process. The both of you learn something through that process. So next time you probably go to the code quicker. And it is why I do like to write code as I'm thinking, right? So this isn't implemented, right? But I want to see what it feels like. I want to see what it looks like. I want to think through at least far enough ahead of the problems, right? I'm thinking of a problem right now that is, okay, these are great, but what happens if I have two tenant-based sagas going? They're going to both have the same ID, so how do I coordinate them? I'm going to have to make changes there, right? I only know that because I'm doing this. We spent too much time trying to talk something out that wasn't going to get resolved that way. Right. And that's okay. I mean, I'm a pictures person, so seeing code helps me, right? If you're talking to me in chat, and you've probably noticed this a lot over the time, right? If you're talking to me about code, sometimes I just don't get it. I don't visualize it. But if you show me the code, I can definitely get my way through it and figure out the moment, right? So here's what's we're going to do. We're going to modify the tenant sagas, the mediator. We're going to introduce an I publish on complete. I think that makes sense, right? It's the wording's nice. I publish on complete. Again, leaning into that I part. Probably some people would disagree with this, but and this is T event or T notification. Where T notification is I notification, right? Because again, I want to Java. I want to leverage the mediator library. I want to keep leveraging that, so I want to enforce that requirement, right? I don't want to make it possible to publish different messages. If there's different behavior that isn't publishing, then how's about I notify on complete? Because that's again leading into the whole notification thing. Because if I go in here, how do I send a notification? So in the commands, register new tenant. Back in the workflow, sorry. Register new tenant workflow. That's media. Yeah, it publishes. Okay, so it publishes. Okay, then we'll go with publish. I want to make sure that my verbiage is staying in line with theirs, because that way it's easier to conceptualize, right? You understand that, oh, it's going to publish a notification, rather than I send on complete or I notify on complete. It's an important piece. Daru in YouTube, hello, how you doing? Please correct me if I'm destroying that name. Welcome. And as always, for those joining, if you have questions, if you have thoughts or opinions on what I'm doing, or you want to know more about what I'm doing, please ask. I'm okay with being diverted. I'm okay with showing you the project as it stands right now. Do not worry about asking questions. Be right back. I got to do some morning stuff. I'll be back. Okay, Dota, thank you. Will you then perform notification publishing operations through an outbot system? Yes. Well, in this event, no, but ultimately, yes. So if I go to, so the idea here is, I don't know how much you've caught up with the previous videos. So the idea of the Saga is to chain these events together, right? These notifications that are internal to this application, right? And then ultimately the goal is I need to publish an event to Kafka. That event will trigger the rest of the system doing things, right? So it's a global event that's published. So right now I have these Kafka pieces, and I do apologize that I will not be sharing this code specifically. There's plenty of examples of me doing this code in the past, and I will happily work on side pieces. Any pieces I create around the edges that we feel useful, I will build out as actual open source projects, as I have done with the mediator stuff. So the Kafka piece right now, I have a Kafka publisher. This takes the event and publishes it straight out, right? So what I was doing was using that, injecting that publishing component and sending it. But what I will do is in this iEvent publisher, I will swap this out for an actual outbox publisher. And the outbox publisher will put these together. So yes, ultimately, yes, it will be an outbox pattern. The notification stuff in here doesn't need to be an outbox because this is all in process, right? There's no queuing here. It just kind of, it actually, the mediator implementation underneath, I think, just synchronously goes through the messages, so it processes them in stack. So yeah, you're talking about the outbox pattern. Yeah, I think Kafka post dates that pattern. I don't think so. I think that pattern's pretty old, but yeah, the outbox will be useful in this case because again, while I'm in process, the Um, the again, it's synchronous. I don't have to worry. So, but once I go to Kafka, the outbox process will be important because I want to make sure that I don't try and publish a message, fail, and then not ever do anything with that message, right? So outbox will be implemented. Inbox, not sure I've effectively used a pattern with that before, but you never know, right? Once I get to those challenges, because right now all I'm doing, now I have probably done something similar to an inbox before in terms of in my consumers, if high throughput is required. Well, Kafka helps with that, right? So to prevent multiple services from processing the same message, Kafka, the way Kafka's um, brokers work, they'll allocate the message to a single system at once. So unless you can, and then when you commit it back, then it's gone. So Kafka kind of helps with the inbox piece, right? I'm also learning Python, complete basics now, do some small projects. Nice, nice. So a lot of this is probably going to feel a lot scary if you're learning Python, unless you've done other code and you're just picking up Python. But feel free to ask questions. Do not worry about, you know, me getting bent out of shape over asking simple questions. But I do this stuff off the stream as well, and I will continue to do that. So I'm actually going to try and make some videos of individual pieces of this as well. I wanted to emphasize the same message to prevent more than one service from running when we create more than one instance when we want to scale a service. I wanted to emphasize the same message. Well, we want to scale a service. So Kafka, the way Kafka works, and it's why I kind of like Kafka, because systems like End Service Bus and Mass Transit, you start up multiple instances to scale them out, but then you do have to worry about that idempotency of the message. The way Kafka works is the way it scales and the way it allocates. It's less. You should always deal with idempotency, right? So if the same message is processed by two pieces at the same time, or even after each other, you should make sure your system is valid, right? So even if I am trusting the fact that Kafka can deliver a single message to one service at once, then I still want to make sure, is this data valid, right? You know, I might want to date time check. I might want to put, you know, if I get a last updated date on a message coming in that's before the last updated on the record, I might discard the message, right? So you still have to make those decisions. Scale up in Kafka, yes, I will be dealing with idempotency, right? I might implicitly be dealing with it in some cases, but I will explicitly be handling it at some points. Yes, because it's necessary, right? Because I have to, once I start chaining events together in the system, I have to make sure that the system is not becoming unstable by messages all over the place. No worries, no worries. And again, I'm going to learn along the way here, which is why I'm streaming this. So I might not be sharing this source code. This is going to be a product. That is my goal, right? But I will share the pieces. I will share the app development. I will share the struggles. I will share the learnings, right? Just because I have done this for a few years does not mean that I know everything about it. It doesn't mean that, you know, I have in some cases been lucky to have experience of other developers, like really good developers, but I've never worked with them, right? I've met them, I've talked to them. And my path through software development is one of, I'm doing my own thing, right? I'm not trying to adhere to an architecture, right? I'm writing my code the way I want to write my code as cleanly as I can. And if it happens to align with someone else's opinion of what software is, that's fine. So, yeah, I may make mistakes. I may struggle. I may think I understand something and I don't do. That's kind of what Dota and I were talking about before. Learning and being accepting the learning. So, okay, so let's see if we can get this in. So we have an iPublish on complete. What this will do is this will publish, and that's an interface, not a. This will publish the T notification publish. That's all it will have on it, right? Now the annoying thing here is basically to get this to go through, I have to build this, publish it, and run the process on updating the NuGet packages. So that's fun. And that one's a variant specification. So if we hover over that, it could be declared as covariant. So it's kind of telling the compiler that this will only ever be going out. I think it optimizes it somehow underneath. I think. Okay, so this makes this a very long-winded process. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that. Why doesn't that save? No worries. Thank you for hanging out, dear. Appreciate it. And again, if I'm saying your name incorrectly, please do not be afraid to tell me so. Okay, so the rest of this stuff is the Saga stuff from yesterday, the SQL Server stuff from yesterday. Again, I will be getting some assistance on that piece because I think my configuration of the database is incorrect, which means that, you know, I'm just going to keep struggling through that, and I don't want to do that on stream. And I have a friend who is way better at SQL Server than I am, so I'll ask him to kind of walk me through what I'm trying to do there and get that piece in there. But that's just for integration testing, right? Just for validation of those pieces. So for today, we can create we can create the database. Okay, so added I publish interface. But before I do that, obviously I've got to make some more changes. I got to decide what this means, right? Because great, I publish on complete. It's going to be there. We're gonna publish the message. Tenant is ready. We're gonna have we got tenant is ready there, right? With the tenant identifier. Return new tenant is ready. And that's our tenant identifier, our orchestration ID actually in our case. So as these events have come in, right, we could have collected more data off them. You know, so this Saga might actually have collected quite a bit of data, right? There's nothing saying I can't collect data in here and then publish it out again, right? So I can't coordinate the data together and publish it beyond. So what's going to do the publishing? How am I going to do that is the next question, right? So obviously these get handled by this. And again, this is me kind of making it up as I go. I'm trying to think through it. I'm trying to design it. If I try it and sit down and write this down, I won't get anywhere with it, right? Because I want to feel the code. I want to make sure that the code makes sense. I can stub out some code and, you know, get a feel for how it works. So publish. What does it mean to publish? Who's going to call publish? So I introduced a process recently in the bot. And I'm kind of questioning whether this is something I should apply. So, in the bot. So, in the bot, I created this pipeline concept. Well, I struggled through figuring out this pipeline concept. And what it does is it allows me to dispatch a message into it, right? So I dispatch a message in context, and then I can register middlewares with it. And so what the middlewares do is just the same way as an ASP.NET middleware. For a given request, it applies levels of behavior, I suppose, right? So the pipeline allows me to apply different layers. So if I consider the Saga, right? Ultimately, the Saga has at least two actions. It has a publish and it has a save, right? It should publish on complete. It should not save on complete. It should clean itself up on complete. So there's a third action, right? So if I consider them in terms of process, right? So if we say publish, then save, and then clean, right? This is on complete. I don't need to do this unless it is not complete, and this is on complete, right? So if I move that there, right, this has to come before this, otherwise I would clean it up. So clean means to remove it from the database. Save is to save it to the database, right? So what I need is a pipeline similar to this, but where I can break out of it. So I can response. So this returns an actual message result type, right? So I can actually break out of this. The default message dispatcher is the entry point. So it calls the pipeline and says, dispatch the message, right? But the middleware here, I have a command middleware, which receives the message and processes out and then says success. And a console out, so I can actually log to the console. So I don't have to put logging to the console in the other one. If ever there's an ad break, by the way, for anybody, so the ad breaks are on every 30 minutes. That is so that it removes pre-rolls as best as it can, which gets people into the stream quicker. If there's ever an ad and you are paying attention, just say, and I will stop talking, or I will wait until after the ad clears the screen. You know, I'm not running the ads to be greedy. I'm running the ads to make sure that Twitch doesn't dump you in several minutes of pre-rolls or random ads whenever they choose, or whatever pattern they choose. At least if I've got control of the ads, I can kind of work around them, is the goal. So anyway, so the pipelines look like this, and now what that meant was I could apply a middleware for a bot. So I want to put some AI stuff into the bot, and I think this is what I want to use for the save. So saving is an actual middleware of the Sagas. So you never explicitly save, we just apply, right? So maybe I'm gonna break this. I'm gonna break this badly. Added publishing interface. Publishing interface. I'm about to turn my own days worth of development on its head. Okay. The impact of what I've just kind of said settled in there, right? So right now, the way you get a Saga, right, is let's look at the actual event handler. The way you pull a Saga out is we get the persistence and we handle that on the Saga, and then we persist. which kind of makes sense, right? Persistence fetch Saga if exists by orchestration ID and await persistence.save Saga. But is that the right thing to do if I want a middleware, right? So if I have a middleware, this isn't going to save, right? I'm not explicitly saving anything. What I'm doing is I'm kind of updating or applying or something like that, right? So at each piece of the middleware, right? So right now we have SQL Server Saga persistence, right? But this piece here actually saves the Saga. Whereas if this was public class save Saga aware, that doesn't sound right. No, it's not Saga DB context. Save Saga middleware. Let's say Sage. Save Saga middleware. Let's say. And this was. It's remembered some stuff there. Task, bool, execute, and then Saga, right? If it was that, then what this would do is trigger the middleware, trigger the pipeline. So I could inject anything into that I wanted to. The challenge is save has to be the last one, right? And if Saga dot, yeah, don't put the concept of complete on that level, so I need to change that around. The problem is the naming, right? What do I name these? Like, I can't implement the Saga here. That's not going to happen, right? So I might pull from persistence, but I might not save there, right? I might have public async tasks apply or update T-Saga. I'm going to copy the signature, right? I mean that doesn't really change what I'm doing there, but save is only part of the problem, right? Persistence has a so this doesn't belong in SQL Server, right? Well, this pattern doesn't exist in SQL Server. Persistence is kind of a component of it. So maybe I have a layer wrapping it, right, that injects persistence. Oh yeah, here's what I'm going to do. No, that won't work. It's not a factory pattern. So what I'm thinking is let's go with Saga Factory for right now. If we have a public Saga of T, we have fetch T GUID identifier, and we insert Saga persistence, right? And then var Saga equals Saga persistence dot fetch T identifier. I think that is asynchronous. Yes, it is. That wants that. If Saga is null, Saga equals new. No, because I handle that elsewhere. Right this second. So I apologize for kind of random thought, but I'm just kind of thinking through this design. This is how I develop, right? Is thinking through the usage, thinking through the design, thinking through how I would apply it, what it changes. You know, all these things are things to consider, and the readability, right? Is it easy to understand, right? Is somebody else going to understand what I'm writing? Obviously, the only test of that is somebody else actually reading it. But is it simple to follow, right? So obviously, doing it this way, I inject the Saga persistence, right? Which means that I don't need Saga persistence injected into anything on the other side. These handlers would change, yes, but not in a great way. And right now, the benefit here is because these are auto-generated. None of that, none of the code that uses these is going to be affected. Right? I'm actually going to have no impact on them. Because all this is handled within the code generation. So I could deliver a change here if I do this the way I'm thinking of doing it, right? I could deliver the change, and to the other side, sagas look exactly the same, right? They behave the same, out of the box. So, yeah. So what I'm thinking about here is I'm kind of injecting Saga persistence, but Saga persistence is kind of there's a middleware aspect to it and an actual behavioral aspect in terms of I need to be able to retrieve it, right? That's a must. I can't avoid that piece. So what do I do? And it looks like, oh, hold on. Oh, he's going back to sleep. The puppies have been pretty good recently. They've been settled for these 2 hours, so I've been getting away with longer streams. And he just got down to check out the garbage guy. Okay, so sorry, puppy diversion. So this is kind of this persistence piece and a middleware piece in the same. So this adds a layer of abstraction. Retrieving it is not part of a pipeline, right? Is it? I don't think so. Because I'd have to pass the notification. If I wrote public class retrieve Saga middleware. So this will be the ultimate public interface I Saga middleware. Right. I Saga middleware. I suppose this would give us the most flexibility. So if this piece, if we had bool execute and it received an I notification, an I notification, leaning again into that. And it received the problem is the state would have to be manipulated, right? So public class middleware state public I Saga. If that returned middleware state, no. There's breaking to do what I'm kind of thinking through here breaks several kind of readability rules, and I like them. I do try to hold to these. The whole it should do something or it should return something. It shouldn't do both, right? If this is going to return the Saga, right? So if this returns middleware state, then how do I know if this middleware is a bailout, right? How do I know that this middleware says, quit? We don't want to proceed with the pipeline, right? Why might you do that? You might do that if we've completed, right? So what is the best way to do that? So ASP.NET design is a little bit different in that each middleware calls next, right? So each middleware proceeds to the next middleware. I haven't figured out that design yet. So I'm not going to even try and modify that for this because, again, I'm going to make this. This seems complicated, but if I can get this working, that code in here is all the code I need to do what to chain these behaviors together, and I kind of like that design. It works for me. It will be able to represent more in the future, and considering the size of this system, like right now I've only scratched the surface, and I'm at 24 projects. I've got API gateways, I've got Kafka, I've got SQL Server, I've got Couchbase, and I've only scratched the surface. So the system will be large. So having the benefit of saying, okay, I can create this Saga and not worry about it because I know that it does it in a nice way, it is worth it. So having this code would be useful, but I've got to make sure that I'm not making it overly complicated for the sake of making it overcomplicated. Right now, I do need to do something here. I do need to make a change. Otherwise, I've got to change this to say, okay, well, hold on, before we save, do we need to publish anything? Right? That would go in my handlers here. Right? So it might be if saga.is complete, then that will be a thing. However, if Saga is I publish on complete, something like that. So I could do this, right? And this would work because it would auto-generate the code. It looks something like that, but hold on. Thinking through that, I do need a public interface. Right? Yeah. And that wouldn't be that. That would be publisher. Not publish. Saga. Not publish. Right? It'd be something like that. And actually, doing it this way, no, I can't. Dependency injection again. Yeah. I can. This kind of this is funny because I'm doing this to try and avoid having the mediator injected into handlers, and I'm injecting a mediator into a handler. Right. So there's something very poor about that. But that would be the concept, right? Cancellation token. So I could just do this. And that would achieve what I need to achieve right now. Is that fun? I don't know. What does anyone else think? Does anyone else have an opinion on this? Do I hack that code in there and make that work, or do I actually spend the time and build this out? This system is really incredible. I appreciate that. Shouldn't save and delete be in the same place here? Well, actually, save would be the else, right? Because if it's complete, we don't need the Saga anymore, right? But we do need to publish before we do it. So I could do it this way now and come back and reflect on this. I think that's probably the safest bet, right? The safest bet is to make this modification, introduce delete, introduce. Actually, that would work exactly as needed to. And then come back around and address pipelines later. I think that's probably the safest bet. So let's introduce delete. So Saga persistence. Task delete t Saga. Same signature. And then in here we need delete. Just just use the tooling. Do not. Okay, so this will be similar to this. Let's async that. If Saga DB from DB is null, return. Should be no way it's null. Context or save changes async. So that would be the delete. So then here we handle it. We test to see if it's a Saga. This is the right order. right? And we don't need that then, right? So if it's publish and complete, this will come out. We can then, that's publish and complete. Oh, that is right, yeah. We can treat it as actually, yeah, publish and complete. That doesn't make sense. Publisher, yeah, publisher, not publish. There's a lot of publishing there. And then we delete it all the time. So if it's complete, we remove it. That's the goal, right? So we don't have a Saga sat around doing nothing, or sat there just telling a lie. And then we persist. If we left it there and we published another event that happened to go into that path, it could trigger another event, and that side effect would be absolutely horrendous to go find in a bigger system, right? So let's say we have 36 services, and we have a Saga trigger an event that publishes to 7 or 8 different systems. How do you find the effects? How do you chase them down, and how do you correct that, right? So in this system, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time unit testing, integration testing eventually, right? I need to make sure that events are going where they need to go. And I've seen what happens when you do not quite understand how events are going to flow. I'm not saying I'm going to do a lot of defensive programming and be scared of things, but like the idempotency, right? That is an important factor there, because if I accidentally publish an event again, the individual pieces need to know, could I process this event, right? So it's unavoidable at some point, but it's easily overlooked. Okay, so the problem here is I have now 2 classes that need that behavior. So now this pattern is getting very messy. And I don't like it, but I'm just gonna move forward with it, right? So again, I have unit tests for this, right? When Saga is complete and does not publish, Saga is removed, right? So again, love it or hate it, my unit testing style is my unit testing style. That's the test. That's the test. So this should be we need private I Saga persistence equals this is a substitute for I Saga persistence. So if you haven't seen it before, I'm using n substitute over mockq now. I moved away from mockq because of the issues with data sharing, etc. So I, rather than even mess around or get involved or figure out whether I agree or disagree or whatever, I just step away. And I tend to take that attitude with most things. If they start becoming controversial and people start arguing over them, I tend to step away and do my own thing. And I have that luxury, right? Because I have that ability to say, yeah, I can do that. Right. So what I'm testing here is Saga persistence dot. I kind of like the API for this. received dot delete, and arg dot is saga s goes to, actually we need to just create non-publishing saga s dot orchestration id equals again, I gotta be careful. So I know that could be ID, it could be shortened to ID, but I differentiate ID over identifier. So ID is the unique key on the table, and identifier is the shareable the shareable value, right? So I need to create a non-publishing saga, and again, this is, I'm being I know that I'm repeating something in another saga, but this is test data for another test, and I don't want to necessarily overlap with the behavior. Right. So I can use that as a validation that I actually did invoke the right piece, and that this is showing us, yes, it called delete because now problem with that is I need to introduce complete, and that is handler, it's called that is handler was called. So that's nice. I could say complete there, but that's not. Test code should be written the same way as you would write regular code, so follow some rules, be strict, and keep things clean. So I want to do, that isn't going to work. Interesting that it thinks I should do that though. I should create the saga and then call complete and pass in persistence. I don't know where it's pulled that code from because I haven't written anything that looks like that. So so private non-publishing saga equals that. What am I testing here? I'm not testing that, am I? I'm testing the handler, the subject. So this is where you see those code generated classes being used, right? So I'm actually going to have to use the non-publishing saga sample notification handler, right? That's the actual saga I'm going to be producing. So handler, that's the subject, right? So subject equals new. Sorry, right? I was thinking through how I'm going to test, and then realized it's the subject of the test, right? Subject dot handle, and then new sample notification, and cancellation token dot none. Get a waiter, get a result. I don't want to mess around with asynchronous. Okay, so without any extra changes, this test might pass. Once it is an error. Oh, yes. Probably working all the way over there. Okay, so let's run the unit tests. Ah. So I've now broken everything else. Right? All my other tests are broken. Because what I did is I changed the code and added iMediator as an actual piece. So now all the tests are broken. So I now got to go through the tests and make sure I mock iMediator. iMediator. Mediator. And then mediator equals substitute for iMediator. The thing I like about end substitute as well is it kind of it it you don't have to do dot object. It is the object, so it's kind of clean. So I like it as an API because you can talk about the real as if it's the real thing. So the readability is improved. Okay, so this is saying that this handler doesn't. Yeah, it's quite right. It doesn't. So why doesn't it? But it failed. So this is the notification. This is the event handler, and this is the This is the started by handler, right? When single handler is implemented, so this one expects it. This one expects it, but the code gen for that one. So sample Saga needs mediator. Needs mediator. Needs mediator. Needs mediator. Okay. What I have found is that this system is very temperamental if it's erroring. If there's an exception in the compilation, that one actually came together that time. Okay, so let's introduce public mediator. Global. Oh, I got it. Let's introduce them. That just saves some headroom in the class. Hey, dear Flux. Good morning. How you doing? Trying to wake up. I've been up for 3 hours already. Okay, so let's go and get that mediator instance created. Substitute. Now these other classes don't have the concept of the complete put in them, so they would never call the save or the delete, etc. But I'm a madman. There is that. There is that. Mediator equals substitute dot for iMediator. So I wouldn't want to go and put these. I wouldn't want to go and build these packages, etc., without actually doing these unit tests. So at least I've verified to the best of my ability they do exactly as I expect. Once these pieces are in place, once they've published the packages, which may trip me up because the other day it took a while for the cache for NuGet to build. Once they're in there, I should, in theory, be able to put that iPublish on there and then test what happens if I complete the process. So hopefully by the end of the stream we can do that. Depends on whether puppies decide need something. Okay. The name mediator does not exist in the current context. What? So code generation, awesome. It does some amazing things, right? One of the things it doesn't do very well is deal with changes, I've noticed. So build. Okay, you build, there's no errors showing. And the tooling is a little bit behind. Started Saga sample notification handler. Started sample. Oh. He's complaining about the tooling. What is it? A bad workman blames his tools? Or a poor workman blames his tools? I didn't have mediator in my injection. Let's try that again. Now I'll fight the fight. At least you didn't make a complete liar out of me. Right. So now that test's gonna, yeah, that test now gonna fail because now mediator's not here. Public I mediator. Mediator. So let's build substitute dot for. Oh, my VS Code is glitching out. Do you know any good IDs out there? No. I haven't seen any recently. One day, JetBrains will sponsor me. So now that's complaining because it's there. I don't know. I genuinely do find this IDE just much more pleasant. It's faster. There's definitely fewer moments of it pausing. I mean, to be fair, Visual Studio is a massive product and it has been built over the past 2 decades. Right? What JetBrains has chosen to do is break up their IDEs, right? Whereas Visual Studio is a everything, right? If they actually made Visual Studio C Sharp, which they did originally, right? They made Visual Studio specific to its task. So you could pick up Visual J++, Visual C++, Visual C Sharp, Visual Basic, right? They used to make the IDE customized to the product, right? What they then did is brought it all under one big umbrella, right? And especially as web development started to evolve and these toolings were, all over the place, so they tried to make it one thing to all developers. What JetBrains chose to do is create one base IDE, then add on all the pieces and sell it as a product. As long as Visual Studio has been developed, MS will have to support WPF. Yeah, there's too much legacy stuff in there. So JetBrains has the benefit of being able to customize their IDEs for the purpose. Visual Studio does not, right? Visual Studio Code is built in much a similar way to Rider, but it's all web stuff, right? So it's a little bit more responsive. But even Visual Studio Code, once you start adding enough plugins in there, it just becomes unwieldy, and it's just not as a comfortable environment. So, clean solution. So the reason I'm not assuming that I'm wrong here again is because I did go through this several times the other day where it just didn't work. Amal, sorry. Yes, good morning. How are you doing? Started does not take 2 arguments. Right, but it does. Right? It clearly does take 2 arguments. Right? Good. Good to hear it. It clearly does take 2 arguments. So what am I doing wrong? Let's see. Once more. Let's see if the error. Okay. When Saga is started by messaging, Saga does not exist. Started Saga. Come on. Started Saga sample notification handler does not contain a constructor that takes two arguments. Beg to differ. If you do it enough times, I'm not joking. If you do it enough times, it seems to work. So, build. No. Name mediator does not exist in the current context. It does, though. If I click on that, it clearly does. It's got the old version of that code cached somewhere. So, again, I'm still trying to learn my way around this piece, but so far my experience has been not stunning in these cases. So we'll delete the bin and object files and see if that makes a difference. That changed things, definitely. Brought something else. What? Why would you put anything in object files that is important? Are you kidding me? Hey, Mr. Anhorn, how you doing? Oh, are you actually kidding me? I've gone and broken a package dependency. So because of the workload stuff at work, they've offered to roll over our PTO. Uh-oh. So next year I'll have 30 PTO days. I work in a company where I get unlimited PTO, which is also a con. Because you're always too busy to take PTO. So that there, like, hey, don't take PTO before Christmas. Let's get it done. We've got more workload. Like that's just again, I think planning and preparation, and you know, yeah. Disappointed in source generators. I'm convinced they have a super secret cache rule code. It's driving me crazy because you have to just rebuild and clean until you actually get the actual version you want. And now I've gone and broken something else because I went and deleted the bin and object folders for this. So they put something necessary inside of the object directory. You can't just run a NuGet package restore. How could I have something in NuGet package restore? Yeah, you can upgrade all you like, but you could make a .NET tool called Aggressive Watch where each change and cleans and rebuilds 5 times. Need to take another pass on this feature. Yes, absolutely. I mean, for this stuff, I think it's absolutely the right solution for what I wanted to do, but the experience is definitely lacking. And if I've broken this project because I deleted, oh, there we go, back to the original problem. Mediator doesn't exist. Okay, so I updated my NuGet packages, which deleting the object file, the object and bin are intermediate folders. They should not be depended upon. So why that broke something, I don't know. But now we're back to this. I want to build a trait system using source generators, and I know I can do it the way I want. I just can't do any iteration changes. Oh, that's a good point. You're kind of code weaving, right? That's how you do PHP traits. Oh, that'd be cool. So how would you say? Oh, no, my brain's now on. Ooh, yeah, that's a good point. You could extend classes. So for those watching that haven't used code generators, you can mark a class as partial, or you can actually modify an existing class, so you can extend it in behavior using code generators as well. You don't have to just create brand new classes. So traits in PHP are kind of a way of weaving in extra functionality into your class that's kind of common. So you can compose a class off traits, and using code generation, you could do something similar. Would you use interfaces to signal it, or you can, or can you actually put just, huh? My brain's worrying on the possibilities now because that actually sounds like a cool idea. Yeah, in Godot version 4 now, all the classes are partial as opposed to version 3 where they're not. Right, because Godot uses code generators. Yeah, an attribute, but you'd have to sit it on something. That's the challenge with the attribute. So, huh. But yeah, that's the potential is definitely there. Flattening properties. Yeah, if you actually look at the code compilation in Godot, you'll actually see the generators firing as well. So it's definitely using code generation to build out interim pieces, um, which is good because it means that it ends up with real code that is compiled and whatnot, and you don't have to write a lot of boilerplate stuff, which is exactly what this is meant to do. If this, and it's not just this is not just a writer tooling issue. I have tried this in Visual Studio, and it causes similar issues. Okay, I'm gonna um, we're gonna exclude that test for right this second because I want to build this project. Oh, come on. Oh, it's because the Saga. No, because it still generates the. CLI is no different. Small sample project just fails or gets stuck. Yeah, this tripped me up a lot the other day because I thought I was breaking something. So the problem is, while it's doing this, you think you've done something wrong. So you're constantly making changes, and then it works. Um, how do I re-include a file in? Um, clean project without dependencies. Add existing item. You're gonna complain at me anyway. Name mediator does not exist. The constructor takes two arguments. So if I go to when Saga is started by, so excluding that file did nothing because it still compiles because it doesn't actually use lists of files in the solution anymore. It uses whatever in the structure. That's awesome. But if I go to the actual implementation, it is clearly there. This is the generated implementation. You can't go here. You can't say refresh. You can't do anything here, right? These generated files are these generated files. You can't do very much with them. And I wonder why code source generators don't work in 2.1 of why they require .NET Standard is kind of left to understand the build the process there. Why standard? Okay, so we're gonna do the old turn it off, turn it back on again. They don't for .NET 5 Plus. Okay, so I can use .NET 8 for source generators. Okay. That's funny because every single piece of documentation I found said use .NET Standard. I mean, it doesn't hurt me in this case, right? But that's an interesting lesson. Seems Microsoft are heading back to their old ways a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's build again. But watch, if I do this, that's two parameters. Let's build it. Let's see if it errors in a different way, right? The name media. So it's still complaining about the name mediator, right? So it's complaining. Started Saga sample notification handler, right? It's actually complaining as if this constructor is not there at all, right? Because it's complaining about this. So it's kind of like in the middle somewhere. It's in a weird compilation state. Let's make a change to something else. Handler for notification to Saga. We'll create a Saga if it does not exist. Right? So let's change that. Let's add that back in. No. Let's clean this one. So if you clean it, notice that the compiled stuff goes away, right? The source generated package goes away. So this clean definitely removes this. So a clean of this project removes these, which I actually think is weird because I think it should leave them there because it shouldn't matter, right? Because those files should be generated in this code base, not in this. Like if we're having this much, well, if I, if we're having this much issue with this process, surely the developers of this, the people that are using this on a daily basis, are having similar struggles and have to be complaining about it. Like it does not want to get over that one, does it? Mediator does not exist in the current context and started. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna break it in a different way. Um, it's not taking my changes now. So Bob and Fred. So even though it's showing generated classes there the way I've changed them, in the middle somewhere it is not. Because it's still complaining about mediator in the errors. So it's completely ignoring the generated class somehow. this is just getting to the point of craziness. Like I am, and this is the big challenge with software development, right? When you're on a roll, you're making progress, right? If I got this working now, this unit test passes, I build the NuGet packages, and then I consume them in the other project, and I prove that with very little effort, I can get the notification to work, right? That's my honest belief. But I'm now going to get waylaid on this, which is this should not even be an issue, right? It took the changes to the other Saga piece without issue. I was able to include that package, that class, without any issue, right? So why is it giving me an issue on this one and won't clean? And if I delete the object file again, I could risk having to install my NuGet packages again, which is ridiculous. So now I'm scared to do that. And what do I look for to identify how I might change this behavior, right? So a clean, and I've always known a clean does not do. That's interesting. That's the only one that, oh, there you go, it's catching up. A clean does not necessarily remove the bin and object folders, right? A clean just is meant to erase all the intermediate files and allow you to rebuild again, right? Which in a larger project, a clean would be slower because you would have to rebuild everything. But it should do enough to fix this. Source generators won't recognize changes after rebuild and clean. Visual Studio does not reload. Create a source generator to extend partial classes which fulfill certain criteria. This is from 2021. Every second rebuild fails. Yeah. Clean source generator files before targets, before build. Item group remove generated. Remove the directories. I think that is actually compile, remove resources. Oh, that's just stopping that. That's so what that is it it doesn't compile the templates for the scripts into the actual thing. It just removes them and then it embeds yeah, item group. So does this actually create a folder called generated, or is that just open in Explorer? See, the clean removes removes that. So the suggestion was remove generated, right? But there is no generated folder. Oh, compiler generated files output path. Let's see if that takes. Let's see if it does anything, right? Right, because it shouldn't. Yeah, that's not that problem. Sorry, just checking on the dog. Okay, so just the problem is I kind of need this to work to proceed, right? So how do I get across this problem? I've got through it before by cleaning and rebuilding a few times, but this is just not taking. So, what happens if I just do that? So don't generate that class, right? Build this selected project. Yeah. So now there is no test here, right? So let's copy this. Let's comment out this. I mean, and clearly this is not a solution, but it's still what? How's it still failing on that piece? uh, immediate started Saga sample, but I've not even generated it. It's not there anymore. Uh, it's not there anymore. So how are you actually? That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so that's complaining because now I don't have the reference to Sagas generators. Okay, so let's do add Saga generators. And now here's a fun part, right? So by default, how am I doing there? Assemblies solution. Okay. By default, it's not added as an analyzer. So if I edit this, right, what I've got to do is I've got to add on these two pieces, right? So it doesn't copy the DLL in to the output and it generates, they become source generators. Oh my goodness me. I'm not even doing anything with the started Saga sample notification handler. It's not a thing. Oh, but it is because the started Saga is there. So it's trying to generate it. That is absolutely ridiculous. Let's run this unit test. Okay, so when Saga is complete and does not publish, Saga is removed, right? So we didn't expect it to receive call matching that. Okay. When Saga is complete and does not publish, right? So in the test, we handled sample notification. If we go in here, right, it should. I don't think I can debug these, can I? Unit tests. Again, for anyone watching, if you have any questions, if you have any opinions on what I'm doing or concerns, just ask. I have no issue with discussing this stuff as best I can. Expected to receive. So you can't debug them in there. So that's this one, right? So do we get here? Did I put my arrange and act in there? Arrange, act. Apex, hello, welcome. What are we building today? Okay, so no game dev, unfortunately. It's this is full my regular stuff. So what I'm working on is I am working on an Agile project management platform. That is my goal, right? So I'm working on the pieces around this right this second. So this is kind of my prototype application. And what I've been doing recently is working on a piece I'm using the word Saga for. So multiple events come from within a single application, the notifications, and I need to do something with those notifications, so I orchestrate them through this Saga thing. I'm using code generation to do that, to build these Sagas, and I am currently struggling with some unit tests around those Sagas. And thank you for the follow, by the way. I appreciate that. So these are the Sagas that I build. So the idea is, in the system, I have tenant management, which is responsible for registering a company when you want to sign up for the system. And in here, when we register a new tenant, or we register the tenant user, these things come together to say, is this tenant actually ready to be handled? So the purpose of this is, when you come to my system, say, and you sign up for a new account, I don't want to fire off all the events that say, now go and start allocating resources, start making databases, start structuring this, start building this, unless I know at least that you've confirmed that you exist. So what I'm doing is, when you register the tenant, I fire off a notification and I record that. And then when you come back and confirm that you're a real user, I take that event and say, okay, combine that with the other event because it's for the same tenant. Is this now good? And if it is, I can publish the event to say, let's go and create everything else. So that's the piece I'm working on. And so I'm kind of creating this, this coordinating piece, right? So the idea would be, a tenant registration saga is started by tenant was registered or by tenant user was registered, because those could come out of sequence. But either one of them is good enough to start the process. And it handles tenant user was verified. And when it's finished, it will publish tenant is ready. So it will orchestrate this data together for a single tenant. And then and in the background, the idea would be that it will publish this event once it's received its last message. So rather than keep writing, there's a lot of boilerplate code necessary to kind of deal with these things. And also, I didn't want to mess up existing handlers of the notifications. So Saga is similar to a sprint. Yeah, it's a long-running process, or a process of undefined time, right? So, and you need several things to come together to complete. Yeah. Sorry, I know there's a camera right there, but the chat's there, so and I'm not getting a teleprompter. So the goal here is that I don't want to keep writing the code to handle these events, right? So right now I do have some subscribers to those events, right? So when a tenant user was registered, what happens is that means the tenant user was registered. I have actually recorded that user in my database, their email, and which tenant they're associated with, right? Yeah. So when I when I do this, I'm going to not worry about the camera for a second. When I do this, I I don't want the logic of handling that event to blur the lines with Saga. So when I register the tenant user, this happens. I then publish a notification to say that that was registered, and um, other things trigger in that case. So when the tenant user was registered, I now need to go and use Auth0 to go and actually register that user with Auth0 so you can sign in, right? So I've already guaranteed I've got the data, but now I can register with Auth0. If that part fails, I still know that you tried to register, but I never got the confirmation. Um, so, but I don't want to mix my Saga stuff in with this piece because then I'm kind of blurring the responsibilities a little bit. So what I'm trying to do is keep them separate. Um, so by adding this Saga piece in there, right, I can kind of achieve that. But now this Saga has to listen to that same event, and that's kind of rinse and repeat code. And it looks something like this. So for I handle tenant was registered, right? Um, right. It looks like this, right? So if it gets the ID of the event, it then fetches the Saga. If it doesn't exist, it creates the Saga. Then it handles that notification, and then it saves the Saga back to the database. So this is very much rinse and repeat code. So what I've done is I've created a project, and this is one of the projects I've actually open sourced as part of this, that will do the generation. So what these will do is analyze the code, in theory, and we're having some issues with that right this second. Instead of Saga handling tenant was registered, could you pass a tenant registered to Saga? But you could, and kind of that's what I'm doing with the code generation, right? I'm wiring those two pieces together so that you can create the Saga and you don't have to worry about how the event gets there. It will register itself and pass that into the Saga, because I don't want to make anything else responsible for the Saga, right? So the Saga is its own component. So if I use the existing subscriber, so a tenant user was registered, right? I could put that code, and I did have it originally in here, right? So I actually had the Saga code in here, right? But now this is doing two things. So with good single responsibility, right, this is doing one thing now, right? This is not dealing with the Saga. The Saga is a separate concern to this piece. So it kind of keeps the code nice and clean. And this is testable on its own without worrying about Sagas. So it is, I am passing tenant registered to Saga as an event. I'm just writing the code automatically to do the passing. Yeah. So a Saga has an orchestration ID. So in this case, it is the tenant ID. Yeah. There's an event in there, right? Or essentially an event. It's a notification, which, and this Saga is not cross system. This is only internal to the application. So it's a coordinating event inside of an application, not inside of the system. The thing is that when that happens, when the Saga is complete, I'm going to fire this notification, this tenant is ready notification. And the handler for that I will have a subscriber for, right? So I will create a tenant is ready handler, right? Oh, I've done it already, right? And in here, what I'm going to do is event publisher. And this will actually publish a global event, right? So this event publisher is actually Kafka underneath. And that will publish a global event. So now the rest of my systems can be told, yep, the tenant's ready, right? So this application is being used to coordinate the events internally to it that are, so these are kind of domain events, I suppose. I'm not getting into domain-driven design. That is not something I want to tackle as well as this. So, but ultimately, this coordinates events within itself, and then when it's ready, it can then notify the rest of the system, right? So the rest of the system, in this case, this event fires, and work items picks that up and says, "Oh, I need to do something, so I'm going to prepare a Couchbase database," and other systems can pick that up and deal with it. So that's what I'm working on. The reason I'm building my own Agile project management platform is because I've worked for years in things like Jira and other products, and I feel that there's something missing there. And the biggest problem when you're dealing with teams is coordination, communication, and transparency. There's too often times where teams just aren't productive. So I want to tackle it myself. Yeah. ServiceNow. I'm quite sure I follow Deflux. Have you tried Asana? I have not tried Asana. FP Design. Welcome in. Thank you very much thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. And along the way, if I find that there is a product that does exactly what I want it to do, and I can suggest that product, um, you know, um, ServiceNow is another one that has a sprint bound thing. Okay. Yeah, there's all sorts of products out there, and a lot of it is human beings, right? Nice. Thank you. Yeah, there'll be a lot of web stuff, primarily right now APIs and dealing with that. But we will be getting into actual websites and stuff along the way. So this is a long running process. I found out why you need to use .NET Standard 2. The VS IDE compiles with frameworks, so you can reference modern frameworks. Okay. Okay. Huh. Yeah, I mean, my understanding of source generators is going to improve, obviously. So again, in developing an application of any sort of size, you're going to have to decide, do I spend a great deal of time going looking at options for how do I do this, right? Do I go and spend the time and see if anyone's created a library for this stuff? Do I reinvent a wheel? Maybe I'm reinventing a wheel. Maybe this has already been done. But I'm going to learn a new thing along the way. So that's why the sagas, right? The sagas may be a problem that isn't actually a problem. And if I get later on into the application development and find out they're not, and I can do them a different way, then maybe I do some refactoring. By keeping the code clean, by keeping the code single responsibility, by trying to keep to some good practices along the way, any refactoring in the future for those things should not be a scary thing. I should be able to pull pieces out and work with them again. So, yeah, those are my design goals. And again, this is the philosophy I'm trying to follow with the game dev. Yeah, it's being able to swap things out, being able to change things quickly is key to good application development. And yeah, again, coming back around on why I'm developing this, I feel that I have some ideas that may actually improve workflows, right? Obviously, I'm not going to discuss them in too much detail as I do want to make this an actual product. So unfortunately, I will not release the source code for this as a whole. Pieces of this will be freely available. And if there's anything anybody is interested in knowing more about or wants to dig into, I'm happy to either create little projects to demonstrate or make videos. Hence why now I have a better camera. So I do feel that having a face on the screen does help with some of the personal touch on the actual stream. for this anyway. So yeah, that's my goal. Asana I will check out though. FB design I'll have a look. But as human beings, we are very bad at organizing and coordinating, and the tools we develop oftentimes do one thing very well, but other things very poorly. So I want to find the one thing I can do well, that, and then fail at everything else. So the struggle I've had today, and for the past hour, has been I need something to build that will not build. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to test this publishing component, right? So this non-publishing Saga sample notification should receive the notification, handle that notification, and then if it's marked as complete, it should ask the persistence to remove itself, right? Because when a Saga is complete, those events aren't needed. Any state that's tracked in that Saga doesn't need to be kept. Right now, the only layer I'm going to have is a SQL Server persistence, but this can be added to, right? I can, there's an interface to apply. And if you're interested in this code, this is already up in my GitHub, and there's a link to it below the stream. So, yeah, I always stream to ask questions, to discuss code. If you have any opinions on what I'm doing, if you don't like what I'm doing, feel free. I'd love to discuss it more. I have been doing software development for more than 2 decades. I'm primarily a .NET developer, and I prefer back-end pieces over front-end, but I happily explore other languages, other frameworks, etc., as I need. So what I'm trying to do is write a unit test around this generated code. And what I'm getting is it doesn't expected to receive a delete, right? But I'm not actually getting. So let's add another fact and test something else. Saga is complete. Could be true, right? Well, that'd be why. This is a non. It's a non-publishing Saga. I need the interface that I don't want to use. I need the interface that I don't want to use. So this interface, I'm now going to have another issue with this, Anna. Oh no, it worked. It worked. It figured it out. Does this mean this is going to work now? Because that one worked. That's because that Saga is commented out. So the presence of the Saga in the code will trigger the build of the package, the thing, right? So we spent 30 odd minutes struggling with that, and I've now got to finish a stream up before I even get this done. Let's get this unit test done. I can publish the packages, and at least then I can move on and get the next piece prepped for tomorrow's stream. Which will be, and I promise tomorrow's stream will start with me being able to publish the events and actually see the Saga complete and finish itself up, and also publish the notification, which then triggers everything else. And it's kind of a domino effect. And once this works, I can really get into starting to plan the stories out that I need. So I do have a question for those in chat that actually do use Agile project management software at all. if I'm building a new system, what's the most important part to start with? So I want to start with tickets. I actually want to start with support tickets and evolve through, I think. So my approach is going to be adding a ticket to the system is going to be my first piece. I'm not going to worry about Kanban boards or Agile boards. Um, so in brief, the long term goal for this project over everything else is really notifications and tracking responsibilities. That's what I want to do, right? The two things I do not have right now that I want in ServiceNow that I'm never going to get. Okay. I think I work with two colleagues who previously worked for ServiceNow. To be able to copy and paste sprint items. Copy and paste sprint items. Why would you copy and paste? Like stories? Let's run this unit test, see if it passes. Haha, it completes. So this actually did remove the thing. So now I need one more test, right? So I need a publishing Saga. And this is going to be, right, a Saga of sample Saga state, because it doesn't matter. Saga of sample Saga state. I am started by sample notification. I publish on complete notification, which is an I notification. For what sprint, what product, what manager, what team 10 times, rather than just copy the one above and describe. Okay, so rather than have it to type 10 times into the sprint board, I have to type the stuff out 10 times. Okay, so I'm going to go back one step. The ability to copy and paste sprint items. So rather than if I have to type 10 items into the sprint board, I have to type out the same stuff 10 times for that sprint, what product, what manager, what team 10 times, rather than just copy the one above and describe the task. Okay, so in Jira, when you create a story, you can say to create another story, it'll use the settings from the previous one, right? So you're creating stories for a team, and when you're creating the board, you have to do it every single time. Okay. I think for me the question is what makes spreadsheets so lucrative? Like every agile board I've seen used devolves into spreadsheets when crunch time happens, and how do you make your software easy to use? that's an exact that's one of the exact motivations for what I'm doing, right? The fact that they devolve into spreadsheets, and everyone needs a spreadsheet of where we are with stories, right? So one of the things I do want to approach is this concept of work that spans teams and when work is due, right? So, that's an ad. I'm still listening, defaults, if you're still around. I'm gonna wait for that ad break, and then I'm gonna have to start finishing up, unfortunately. Move to folder. Um, okay, so the ad break's over. So I just wanted to make sure that I didn't leave that in in limbo with people that were in ads. So the spreadsheet thing, and actually, defaults, you make another point as well. One of the things I want to aim for in this is tracking when things are due. So when items are added, they have a due date expected on them, right? So it doesn't mean that that has to be completed by then. It just means that's the due date for review. And if it doesn't get received or updated or changed by then, it will start notifying people, right? Similarly, if a task spans multiple teams, each team gets that task in their board. And who it's currently being worked on by would be visible, right? So if they have an element, and again, this is all kind of in my mind, I'm trying to figure out how to do these things and whether there's real value. But the kind of goal would be that there is not a story for DevOps. There's not a story for the team. There's a story, and it has DevOps and whatever involved. And there's a collaboration board that shows overall collaborations between teams, so that there's a board for the team and there's a board for collaboration to show overall status of stories that are in collaborative states. And similarly, default notifications, visibility into tasks and stuff, right? So just a general platform for helping tell people there's something to be done on this thing, right? And set expectations, because we lose track of those things, and they sit there, and we don't, and then we come up with new processes to deal with them, right? So that's kind of my goals. I need to charge a phone quickly, otherwise we're going to have an issue. So I have been kind of considering how to start this, how to get the messages. So these pieces are the architectural pieces. These are the pieces that I'm going to have to build to support the system in the long term. I really want when Saga is complete and publishes notification. So I feel that leaning into the fact that I'm using the mediator library is acceptable, right? I don't mind. Okay, I'm gonna do copy and paste. I don't like doing that normally because it can copy across incorrect assumptions. Saga is removed. Saga is complete. Saga publishes notification. Oh no. Publish is called. And I need to also mark that as. I can't actually do that because I don't get the Saga. The Saga is instance inside of the actual handler, so I don't need to do that test. The fact that it calls delete is enough because it marks it as complete. It's implicitly complete. I could dig in, but yes. So this still matters, right? Mediator dot received dot publish arg is sample notification, right? So if I do, no, it's not sample notification, it's complete notification. And actually the orchestrating period you could chain sagas together using that pattern, right? Because I orchestrated notification, you can use that to trigger the others. They have to be I orchestrated because they have to have the orchestration identifier on them. If you wanted to have like, oh, it's this user and this tenant, etc., you'd have to create something right now to join that information together. But this should publish complete notification with the orchestration identifier. That's Saga is complete. Saga is removed. Publish is called. So we handle the sample notification, and then we handle new publishing Saga. Publish. Yeah, okay. So we just handle the sample notification and it should publish. That's fine. Right, That's fine. Yeah, I implemented that funny. So let's see if we run now. Obviously not if we're going to do that. No, publish is called. So we did not call publish. Oh, because I did non-publishing Saga. Publishing Saga sample notification handler. Helps if you use the right type. So I know I'm doing this backwards. I'm not doing this as test driven because this is kind of hard. I need to write the code. Yeah, writing the code is not simple. So we got delete. We got publish this time, but we didn't get delete. So why didn't we get delete? Right? And I've got like 2 minutes. So publishing Saga sample notification. So if it's publish on complete, we call publish, and then we call delete. So yeah, doesn't yeah. That'd be nice if I could just get rid of the actual one and just use the explicit one, because that's when it's cast to iNotification. This is the publish it's going to call. Explicit interface. Saga is removed. We should Saga is removed. Made the same mistake again, didn't I? It's a publishing Saga. Again, that should be an actual lesson in why you don't do copy and paste tests. Okay, so we have tests. They are passing. We are proving that it will call publish when it completes. We are proving that it will call delete on the Saga when it is complete. I think that's good enough for right now, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here, commit this code, publish the NuGet packages. Again, if you haven't seen them, if you go to GitHub/tbd develop mediator.sagas, this code for the Saga piece is available here. I've got some changes to make there with links to some of the reference material of how I'm building these. Feel free if you want to check this out. If you have any thoughts or opinions on how it's being done, found the super secret analyzer. Nice. And as always, if you want to, you're more than welcome to join my Discord. If you have any further questions, if you want to talk about stuff in here, feel free. It's not a very active Discord, but it is there and people are checking it out. Cash. Huh. If you have any more information there, Mr. Anhorn, I would appreciate any shares there. But anyway, I have to go because otherwise I'm going to be late for my own work. I will return tomorrow. Nice, thank you. Where I will continue this path a little bit more. Overnight, I'm probably going to get this working and tested so that I don't have to start tomorrow's stream with a little bit more guesswork and I can move forward with confidence with the Sagas. And yeah, so it says 9 people, which is raid worthy. So if anyone has any suggestions, I would appreciate them really quick. If not, I'm going to go and see if there's anybody to raid. I know people are starting their days, so I will not be cheap and raid into pirate software if they even accept raids. That would just not be. Who we got? Golang, Twitch API. Kind of want to raid. If I'm going to raid someone, I want to raid someone. Claim and dev. Again, I'm going to raid out based upon suggestion. So if you obviously come in from a quiet talking stream only, going into music, etc., be prepared. Did he just go live? Oh, then we're going over there. 100%. Chill stream. Apex is a really great streamer. He's only just got affiliate status. Obviously, he was in here a minute ago, and he's building a game and he's writing in Godot, and definitely worth the follow. So here we go. We'll raid over there. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it as always. Let's I'll be back tomorrow, and hopefully start to make a lot more progress. So thank you very much. I will see you all soon. And yeah, take care all.